It's appropriate today when we celebrate a great poet in the church, we discuss the role of parables in Jesus' teaching. Now, as we hear in Mark, Jesus speaks in parables, as those who are listening to those parables were able to hear. So in order to understand what Jesus is saying, it's necessary for us to open up not just our ears, but to open up our hearts and our minds so that we can really hear what it is that Jesus has to say. Otherwise, those words will just seem like gibberish to us. So it's important that we take the time to hear. And those who listened most deeply, of course, to our Lord were their disciples. And it's these disciples that Jesus is there with and takes the time to explain further what is being said. Because these are the people who are taking the time to actually listen, who actually care to hear what it is that Jesus has to say. God is speaking all around us. The Lord uses things that we might never have anticipated to speak the word that God has to offer to each and every one of us. And so it's that much more important to hear the words that Mark is saying, to be able to take the time to listen even to parables, to what Jesus has to say to us. We have to be attentive in our listening in order to hear what it is that God is trying to say to each and every one of us. It's for this reason that pet projects like My Gospel According to Superheroes is so important to me. Because it's even through these things that we love, even through these things that we might not expect to hear God speaking to us at first, it's where we often do hear what it is that God has to say. The idea behind the Gospel According to Superheroes is we don't have to separate what we love in our lives outside the church and our normal everyday lives. We don't have to separate that love from our love of God. We can hear what God is often trying to tell us in these most unlikely of places. But to do that, we have to be open to listening. Again, we have to keep our ears open, but also our hearts and our minds in order to be able to discern what it is that God is trying to say to us all around us. God is constantly crying out to us. God is constantly speaking to us. In order to hear, you have to take the time to listen. To do that, we also have to take the time to train ourselves to be able to hear whenever it is that God is speaking to us. So keep doing that. Keep training yourselves to hear what it is that God is saying to you. You may be hearing God even in those places you least expect. But you can certainly hear God speaking in those things that you most love. You might be surprised, not just by what you hear God say, but where you hear God speaking.